Hello there, it's me, an Englishman. I'm here to ask you to vote for Walking the Earth podcast on Podcast Land. I'm asking you to vote for them because they understand me, an Englishman. They know where England is. They've walked the Earth. That's where England is. The people at Peace Propaganda podcast are too busy to walk the Earth. They're too busy trapping raccoons, inciting them to anger, and then releasing them into retirement homes. So please, vote for Walking the Earth podcast on Podcast Land. Thank you, and goodbye.
Paid for by Walking the Earth Podcast, a podcast about the backpacking experience. Vote for Walking the Earth Podcast on podcastland.com.
Hello and welcome to Walking the Earth Podcast, the podcast about the backpacking experience. I'm Justin Castle, along with my guest, Yoeal Haile, calling in from New York, New York.
And I'm Mike Margulies, calling in today from the Republic of the Union of Myanmar. That's actually the official name of the country. And a couple quick shout-outs. First, I want to say a big thank you to our friend Rich Scott at Designabot. Rich is a buddy of mine, met in Cambodia, and Rich helped us recently design some business cards. So we're official now. Maybe you thought we were official when we made our first episode, or maybe it's when we hit a certain threshold of plays, but nope, we've got business cards, so we are official.
Yeah.
And I posted a picture.
I just wanted to add that.
And I posted pictures of our business cards on our Facebook page, and check them out. It's amazing work. If you're looking for business cards of your own or other kind of logo design, branding work, email rich at designabot.net or check out his site, designabot.net. Another quick shout out. We've got, as we mentioned in the last episode, a competition this month.
Yes.
On podcastland.com.
Podcast Land.
And we're competing for most votes against peace propaganda in a friendly competition. So please go to podcastland.com. Vote for us, help us win so we can take over their show for 3 minutes.
3 minutes. They won't even know what hit them. Trust me. We've got some really interesting plans. We've got some good plans. If you have any ideas, please get to us at facebook.com/Walking the Earth Podcast or at WTE Podcast at Twitter. Right, Mikey Mike?
Yes, sir. That is it.
All right. Well, bringing it back to New York, I'm sitting with my friend, Mr. Yoeal Haile.
How's it going, guys?
It's good.
Hey, man.
Thanks for joining us.
It's good to meet you virtually.
Well, Mr. Yoeal is a long-term friend. We've known each other since college. We were the same major in school, and then I went my own way to Boston while he lived in New York, and then he got bored of New York. He did everything there is to do here, and wound up living in China for 2 years. And where else have you lived?
I lived in Brazil as well.
You lived in Brazil?
Yeah.
How long were you in Brazil for?
I was there for 4 months, and then I moved back to Philly for grad school.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. But besides that, Yoel's you've been on many continents in many different countries. We're talking about like Europe and
so Europe, South America, Africa, Australia. So I've been about 50 countries, I would say.
That's
You've
pretty.
been to every continent except Antarctica, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's on the to-do list, though.
Yeah. Mine too, I guess. I declared a few episodes back that I want to see all 7 continents, so I guess I have to hold true to that and go to Antarctica at some point too.
You guys should go together.
Probably Africa first,
Yeah, we
though.
should.
Yeah,
Maybe in
why
South
not?
Africa,
Let's do
then
it.
we'll fly down together. It's not too far.
Yeah. Do they have any cheap flights to Antarctica?
So you can do this thing where you actually don't touch base in Antarctica. You just fly over it. So it's I think it's like a 4-hour flight from South Africa. It might be longer, and it's like
Oh, you do it from South Africa?
Yeah. And you just fly over Antarctica and then you fly back. So
Are you doing this?
yes, I mean, like, if you're not a big fan of the cold, it's an easy way to knock it out. I don't know technically if it counts because you don't touch foot. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, does that count?
no.
I don't know. But you gotta see some penguins or something. Or they're mainly in North Pole, aren't they? I don't know. But
yeah.
I'm not familiar. But you got to touch the continent somehow. Join a whaling expedition and just touch the thing. Something like that.
Yeah, I think you have to touch it because when I was in the southern tip of Spain many years back in Gibraltar, I saw Morocco, but I can't count that as going to Africa. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. So Yoel, you're actually moving to South Africa.
Yes. So South Africa is one of the countries I've never been to, but same thing when I first moved to Hong Kong. Taking a risk, moving somewhere I've never been to, don't know anybody that lives there. But I'll be moving out there in about a month.
That's awesome. And what was the inspiration for moving to South Africa?
So I'm first generation American. My parents are from Africa. So I've always been interested in working on the continent. Then a job opportunity came up that kind of met my short and long term goals. Rather than move, a couple years down the line, I decided just to, jump now at the opportunity. So
that's very cool.
So it's always been kind of like some kind of a dream of yours to move to Africa for some period of time.
Yeah. So I think I'll probably spend most of the rest of my career over there. So
awesome.
Looking forward to it.
That's very cool. And do you have any idea? Do you want to? You're starting in South Africa, and you might work your way around, or, I mean, I know it's hard to see that far.
Yeah.
But do you want to live, or at least touch on the different countries in Africa?
Yeah, so I think the plan is to live in South Africa for 2 years, and then from there, so my family's from Eritrea, so ideally, I would think about moving back there.
That's cool. That's very cool. Do you still have a lot of family?
So you want to live in Africa for like a really long term?
Yeah, so I think this is like a one-way move, so I think it's tough to predict.
Like a permanent move.
10 years down the line, but I think I'll probably spend the rest of my career there.
Awesome. I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you.
I'll come back and visit for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Or Thanksgiving.
At least I have Mike and I now have an excuse to go to South Africa if you're there.
True, and a place to stay.
Yeah. Well, in my goal for, as I said, I wanted to see all the continents. I think Africa is the next one. Before I try to do the Antarctica expedition, probably Africa's the next one. So it's good to have you on my virtual Rolodex.
Yeah,
over there.
It's very cool.
You spent some time in Africa already?
Just visiting. I've never actually lived or worked there before. So
okay.
Whereabouts did you travel? Maybe I can pick your brain for some tips.
So I went to Eritrea. I went to Ethiopia and Kenya as well. So all East Africa so far.
Awesome.
How did you find it? Did you find it to be difficult place to travel, or because you've been around a lot of places? So
yeah, so I would say like
the
tourism type of stuff is less developed in most of those countries. Maybe Kenya, it's a little more further along because I think people have been going there for a while. But I mean, like you'll be on your own. There's not a lot of the tourism industry is not as developed in some of those other countries.
Gotcha. When you stayed there, how'd you get around, and where did you stay when you were there?
Usually like hotels or friends' houses, and it varies. So I went to Kenya with a group of classmates, and
okay,
we chartered like some small planes when we went to different cities.
Okay,
and then besides that, we did some bus rides and that type of stuff.
Gotcha. Was there anything there that struck you that's as very memorable, that you definitely opened your eyes in different ways that you've never experienced before? Like, was it seeing certain countries, or like did you get to see family that you never knew existed? Like, when you're with this group of students, like what was really eye opening?
Yeah, I think one thing, when I went to Eritrea, it was good to see like a lot of my family, especially like the older ones. So I'd been there twice. I went 2 years ago, and then I went in 1991. So like the first time I went, I was able to see some of my grandparents I'd never met before.
Wow, cool.
Before they passed away. So that was a good experience. I would say that. So recently I went to, like a couple months ago, I went to Kenya and Ethiopia. So one of the things we did in Ethiopia, we went to visit the African Union. It's kind of like the UN for Africa. So that was a good experience. So we got through a personal connection, we got like a tour, So
you got the connection, man.
Yeah, it's all about friends and friends of friends. So
That's awesome.
Right. So a thing as I hear a lot about Africa is this kind of place where there is more of like a chaotic element to it, right? Where some of the governments aren't necessarily as set up as, say, in a Western country or something. There's more of like a just expect the unexpected. Maybe did you find that to be the case?
I think it varies by country. Like some countries are definitely more politically stable than others. There definitely still a few countries that have had rulers or dictators that have been around for many years. But it's tough to generalize the whole continent.
Right.
I think it
Right,
varies
right.
definitely country to country.
From the
Yeah.
ones that you experienced, I guess I want to know, like, were there any tips or tricks? I think Mike was trying to get into that, like things to watch out for, things to avoid when you were going through. Like, was there a lot of like shady travel people, like Mike experienced that in India, where people
Yeah, exactly.
people are offering things that you should not listen to. Like, was it pretty straightforward? Or
Yeah, I think it was different when I went, because like I'd always be with people who've lived there in the past, so it's kind of more like a personalized experience.
right.
But like I think when you travel anywhere, like I've been in South America, Asia, you definitely gotta be careful. As a tourist, there's definitely people looking to take advantage of you. So that thing that could probably happen, whatever country you're in, if you're not careful. So
Gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah, traveling with locals, I guess, is generally a good way to experience a place.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's really cool. I'm excited. I can't wait until you get there, because now I have a reason to visit.
I'm looking forward to having you.
Next year I'm planning on taking a week, and I'm just gonna go. I'm not gonna have a full, like, maybe I'll take all my 2 weeks. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna try to do like a crazy shootout to see Mike wherever the hell he is in the world. Where in the world is Mike Margulies?
Michael Margulies.
and try to catch Mr. Yoeal as well. I did.
We could be in completely different parts of the world. That would be
pretty
tall order,
difficult.
man.
Well, maybe we could coordinate it that you guys are both in South Africa at the same time, and we go fly over Antarctica
That'd
at
be
the
awesome.
same
Yeah.
time. Why don't we do that?
We'll have a Walking the Earth podcast episode 22 reunion.
live over Antarctica?
That'd be awesome. I think you'd be the first podcast to do on live from Antarctica.
Oh, holy
Yeah.
shit! Holy shit!
We'd be the first
Holy shit!
podcast from Antarctica. Yeah.
That would be incredible. Right now, I'm next to a penguin. He says hello. Quack, 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 quack.
We'd have to do a video podcast, I think.
I think the internet would be a lot
Antarctica.
slower there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we'll bring our own equipment. It'll work out.
Yeah.
But it's one thing that we really wanted to talk about, Mr. Yoeal. A couple times ago, we had Brooke Silva Braga on our program. I don't know if you're familiar with any of his work. He did a documentary. It's about backpacking, about traveling the world.
Mm-hmm.
A Map for Saturday.
Yeah, called A Map for Saturday. And he talked about his documentary and his experiences traveling around the world. And Mike is actually about to head over to China.
Okay.
And you have 2 years worth of experiences in China. So what are the types of things to expect when you're going to China when you get there? City versus rural, anything, what do you remember of the trip? Or what tips do you have?
I would say one thing to prepare for is definitely the language barrier. You
Right.
go a lot of places where nobody will speak any English.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of, I guess, nonverbal communication.
Okay.
Another
Yeah.
problem is,
And I get some of that experience now, actually. So I'm in Myanmar.
yeah.
Well, it turns out I'm actually on a very spontaneous trip here to Myanmar. I was
Tell them why.
my
Tell everyone why.
Okay, so my Thai visa Actually, not even a visa in Thailand. You get kind of a stamp when you enter Thailand. You can get a visa, but I didn't. I just kind of walked in, so they gave me a 30-day stamp, and my 30 days expired. So I was hanging out in Chiang Mai, stuck in Chiang Mai again until my visa expired, which is seems to be the theme of this Southeast Asia expedition. So I went to the border to Myanmar. So I literally, for those who are backpackers, they're familiar with visa run thing. If you're not familiar with it, a typical thing you often do is there's a whole industry around it. Is this whole visa run thing? So you have to literally physically cross an imaginary line into another country just so you can cross back the imaginary line and get another 30-day stamp.
Right.
So I traveled to the northernmost part of Thailand just so I could cross into Myanmar and come back in. I had been told by other backpackers that, oh, you need to do all this stuff in advance. You hear all these rumors about Myanmar, like you need to have a visa in advance, and they don't have any ATMs there. All these weird barriers to entering. I figured when I got there, I'd see for myself. Turns out I was able to enter Myanmar. I walked in and they paid them 500 baht, which is like, I don't know, $16. And they actually took my passport and they gave me some little book, like a 2-week pass. It's a really bizarre kind of experience, actually.
What?
Apparently, yeah. So now I don't even have my passport. I have this little book and actually that hotel took the little book from me. So I have to trade in when I leave this hotel, trade my key for the little book, then go to the border, trade the little book for my passport. It's like a video game. You need like the small key to get to the room with the big key.
Like Zelda?
To get to the room with the treasure chest. So
that's scary, man. That's really scary.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, it was completely unplanned too. I basically on a completely spontaneous basis ended up here in Myanmar, and so here I was all of a sudden in this new country where I don't know the language or really much about the culture at all, and I turn up and all of a sudden there's people that are selling cartons of cigarettes for $1 and also Viagra pills.
I'm assuming you bought all of their supplies of both of them.
Yeah. So I had, like, even by my standards, a bizarre kind of experience yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, Yoeal, it was. I think I got a taste of that experience of China where there wasn't a lot of English speaking. So I was getting around, like, I just point to items on a menu. Or today when I woke up to call you guys, I had to kind of non-verbally communicate that I needed coffee. So maybe this is my China training wheels, I guess.
Yeah. Like what else? Where else did you find yourself? So language barrier is a big one. Is there anything else, like traveling barriers? Like, is it hard to get around? Like, what have you run? What did you run into in a rural versus the city? Because you had both experiences.
So, I mean, in China, like, depending which cities you go to, there's a lot of construction going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, hotels are popping up everywhere. So I remember, when I lived in Hong Kong, I used to fly home for 2 weeks. When I flew back, there's, 2 or 3 new buildings on my street that weren't there, just finished. So, like, a lot of times you'll have, like, a name of a hotel in Chinese.
Yeah.
And you'll just, like, show it to the cab driver, and he'll have no idea where it is.
Yeah.
The hotel might have been there for a couple months. They have no clue. So
really?
You spend a lot of time just driving around. He'll be stopping and asking people. Nobody knows where the hotel is.
Oh, God.
It's because it's new?
Because it's new, and there's, like, a million hotels, depending on which city you're in. So, like, nobody knows, like, where these hotels are. They know the neighborhood, but, like, they don't know, like, the street name or, the hotel name, so.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, I'm relating that to, like, an experience I had in Bangkok, and I think it was a similar experience, but for different reasons. But in Bangkok, I had the hardest time ever getting around, because I would try so I wanted to go to the Bat Cat Museum in Bangkok, which is it's like a Batman and other nerdy things toy museum.
Oh, cool.
which is, by the way, awesome. If you're in Bangkok, go to the Bat Cat Museum because it's sweet.
That's awesome.
And so basically, I would go to cab drivers and I'd show them, like, hey, can you show me how to get here? And I'd pull up on my phone. I was pulling up, like, the name of the place in Thai and the map of it and the address in Thai. And I just had this terrible time getting around because, like, no one would know where it was. And I don't know maybe I just need to figure out a better way to communicate. I think the way to get around, at least in Thailand or Bangkok, is no landmarks or something.
Right.
So I had an experience like that, but sounds like it's different reasons.
Yeah.
It's just because in where you were, maybe stuff was just so new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Like I feel like nowadays, like I don't know if I'm sure somebody out there has done this. Why have you guys ever tried like using a GPS app and converting it to the appropriate language or something like that? Or
What I do is I just run the GPS sometimes while I'm in the taxi and just tell him while he's driving like where to go.
Okay.
You have to do that actually sometimes because they might take you for a ride if you don't. They
Right.
might take the long way or go the opposite direction. This has happened in Bangkok actually. The cab driver would go the opposite direction of where you're supposed to go, and he'd say, "No, actually it's a right here."
yeah, I see.
They're trying to run the meter, you know.
Yep, I gotcha.
A lot of times I guess like it's like if it's like a shorter term trip.
Mhm.
Like I don't want to pay for roaming,
Mhm.
so like I won't have data available when I'm in the cab. Right.
Well, you don't need it with the GPS. If you have the map already loaded when you're on Wi-Fi, you can use the GPS without data because it's using a whole
Okay.
different thing.
Huh.
That's
I didn't
helpful.
realize that. That's
Yeah,
cool.
pro tip.
um
Yeah.
So like
It's just like you have a TomTom in your car, right? Because those aren't running on like a 3G data plan. They just have a GPS chip. So the satellite can communicate with your phone. It's a GPS chip without the 3G or 4G or whatever.
right. Did you find yourself like out and stranded in the middle of nowhere in China ever?
Not in China, but definitely in other places. Like I remember once we were in Vietnam and we were waiting for a bus, and then the bus came and just like drove by us, right? So we were like stuck in Vietnam. We have like a flight the next morning, and that was like the only bus. So then we had to like pay an exorbitant amount for a taxi.
Oh gosh.
Luckily we didn't miss our flight.
Okay. That's crazy.
Wow.
No,
The bus just did not stop.
it saw us. It slowed down, and then it just kept going.
What the hell is that shit?
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Did you use the wrong hand signal or something to flag it down?
I think we were at the wrong bus stop. So even though we had our tickets, we were waving our tickets, like they didn't stop. Like they have their rolls. You have to be at the right bus stop. So
Whatever.
no.
That's crap.
So
Like I know that when you lived in Hong Kong for a
Yeah.
while. How is that compared to living like elsewhere, like in New York or other places? Like expensive. I'm curious, cost wise, and like style of living.
So I would say style of living is very similar to New York. I mean, it's like it's a very developed city. You can find anything you find in New York there, pretty much, except for Mexican food. They don't have any good Mexican food. Like I don't know. Like outside of the U.S., it's tough to get Mexican food. I love Mexican food, but maybe it's a business idea for someone.
That's why when Yoeal
Mexican
came
food in
back,
Hong Kong, yeah.
Yoeal came here a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Back right when he
The
came
first
back from
time I
China.
came back, yeah.
Yeah, the first thing he ate was Chipotle.
Yeah.
Chipotle, and that just proves his love for Mexican food for those listeners out there
Yeah.
who also share that sentiment.
But in terms of costs, so like my rent was actually double in Hong Kong as it was to New York.
Wow.
I lived like in Midtown Manhattan.
Wow.
But I think everything else is pretty cheap. Like public transportation is like less than $1. Taxes are really low.
Mhm.
I paid like 5 or 6% tax when I was out there. So all in all, you take home more money than you do living in New York.
Got it.
And Hong Kong itself is also. I haven't been to mainland China. I spent maybe 12 hours on a layover in Hong Kong once, but I've never been to mainland China yet, although it's in the trajectory. It's pretty different, though, yeah?
Yeah. It's pretty different. I mean, like in Hong Kong, it's like I guess it's like China light.
Right.
You can get around, talking in English. You go to restaurants, the menu, they'll have like English menus, that type of stuff. So it's a great place if you move into Asia and you want somewhere to start off and you don't have like the language skills. Like Hong Kong and Singapore are definitely great cities to start off in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Something I didn't completely have an appreciation for before coming to Asia was that, Hong Kong is basically its own place. I mean, it's kind of part of China, but also kind of its own country. Like, it's got its own currency. It speaks English a lot, and Cantonese versus Mandarin. And it's completely different cost-wise. It's just like its own world. It's like its own country, but depends who you ask, because China might say, no, they're part of us.
Yeah.
Another thing I'd be curious about to hear your perspective on, Yoel. We talked about this. So when we talked with Brooke, and we ended up talking about China, he actually did another documentary, which I watched very recently, called The China Question, that I would also actually recommend to folks. But while he was in China, he shared basically with us on that episode some of his experiences in China. And one thing that we talked about that I also experienced here is I'd be curious how things are racially, right? Because I find in Asia, everyone wants lighter skin and all this stuff, right? So as a white person traveling through Asia, I get treated a certain way. Did you find, as a black person traveling through China and Southeast Asia, how were you treated?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times, I was kind of treated like a celebrity, like
Okay.
especially if I was with like another one of my friends who's African American or whatever. Being over 6 foot tall, you definitely stick out.
Yeah.
Being tall
Right.
and black. So there's a funny story. One time, I was in Taiwan for a bachelor party, and then there's a couple of us tall guys, and then my coworkers, and one of my buddy's coworkers is like a famous pop star in Taiwan. He's like their version of Justin Bieber, pretty much. So we start off at dinner, and then we went to a club after, and then karaoke after, and the whole time there's like paparazzi following us. So the next day it was like, oh, American athletes and whatever his name was. It was like all over the newspaper and the news.
So they assumed you're a basketball player
Pretty
because
much,
you're
pretty
tall
much.
and black.
Right.
And that was a bad assumption if you've ever seen me play basketball.
Oh yeah. He loves the sport though. He loves the sport, Yoel.
Right.
We've played basketball together, haven't we?
We played. It's very ugly, but we played together.
I am horrible. I am a horrible basketball player. I played in
Yeah.
JCC league in like high school, and I sucked. I was like shitty.
I bet you I was worse.
No, the other thing I would say, people love taking pictures with you, right? So
Right.
I get
that
especially
as
when I was
well.
in Beijing, I probably got it the most.
In India, at least.
Like people would try deceptively take pictures, like they think I don't notice,
Yeah,
but I'm just
Right.
standing somewhere and someone's taking a picture of me.
that's nuts.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel like you had any invasion of your privacy at any point?
Well, it gets annoying after a while. Like I can see why celebrities get angry at TMZ and these other paparazzi because sometimes there's like every 10 minutes someone's stopping me to take a picture.
Wow, that's
So,
nuts. That's
I
like
don't know.
you get the taste of that.
It feels good at first, but then it gets very old very quickly.
Yeah. Did you ever
Yeah.
have to turn people down? Like, no.
No, I love taking pictures. So
That's
So it sounds like you got pretty. It was mostly positive. Your experience, you didn't. I mean, when we talked with Brooke a lot, he seemed to have the impression that there was a little bit of racism in the area, and I don't know. It sounds like you didn't have that experience though. People kind of treated you like, oh, you're. They I think they maybe just like that they're. If you're different, they just are intrigued by it. Maybe whether you're white or black or whatever, just being different is something intriguing. Is that accurate?
yeah, I would say so. I think a lot of it is the way you carry yourself as well. So I think I came off. They're like, okay, this guy is American. He's like a tourist.
right.
So for the most part, I never really had any major issues when I was traveling, or even in the workplace too. Generally.
Okay. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good to know.
You would hope in the workplace you wouldn't have it.
I would say a bigger issue in the workplace was my youth, right? So
Oh.
Oh, I see.
a lot of people envied how far I was in my career at my age compared to where they were.
Mm-hmm.
But the
So
race
jealousy
thing wasn't really
kinda
a big
thing?
issue.
Was that overall in the company, or is that just for when you were in China, in Hong Kong, in that area? The locals were like, "Oh, look at this young guy."
Yeah, I think it came out more when I was in Hong Kong, right? If my manager was like 5 years older than me, had a similar title,
Right.
I can sense the envy.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
see. Interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I also wanted to know, like, when you're heading out to like rural China,
hmm
what kind of places did you visit when you were in rural China?
So I think for the most part, I stuck, at least in China, I stuck it to the big cities. So I'd go to Shenzhen a lot. It's about an hour train ride from Hong Kong.
Okay.
So a lot of times on weekends, we would travel because it was actually cheaper to travel outside of Hong Kong than stay in the city
Right.
for a weekend. So we'd go there. It's an hour train ride. You can stay at these like hotel spas where they have like they have food, like a swimming pool. You get some massages, and you have to spend like $10 or $15.
What? That's it?
Yeah, and like for that amount of money, you get like a 2 hour massage.
Holy crap.
you get dinner and like a couple of drinks. So
Asia's amazing.
we would go out and then.
Oh, well, you got dinner and drinks and a massage for all that?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's an excellent deal.
This is
my
in Shenzhen.
Yeah, in Shenzhen, yeah.
Oh man, I'm planning, I think, quote unquote, to go
But
to
it's
China soon.
another one of those instances like the menu's not in English, so you don't know what you're ordering. And even if it says like it's beef, you never know what it is. So
Okay.
sometimes I ordered bacon once, and it definitely wasn't bacon. I don't know what it was, but I'm still alive. So.
Mystery animal part.
What was like a dish that you had there inspired by the thing you just said? What was like a dish you had there that you would never have thought you'd eaten and enjoyed?
So a very popular dish there is chicken feet.
Huh.
So if you go to like these dim sum places where you get like a bunch of, it's like kind of like tapas but Chinese food. So I remember like my first week of work, my first day we went to lunch, and then they like brought out chicken feet, and it's like a very like respected dish, and you can't like turn it down. So I had to eat it, and it wasn't that bad. I mean, a little
Yeah.
bony for my taste, but it was pretty good.
You know what I like though is they don't waste anything.
That's
like
true. They eat
they'll eat every part of an animal.
Yeah.
So it's nice
Wow.
because if you're gonna kill an animal for its meat, like it's nice that they eat every part of the animal. It doesn't go to waste.
Right.
So
That's very true. Like
yeah.
so like I know you went around all around China and you
Yeah.
got to see all of that. What was your any takeaways from the China trip, like besides that you'd give any pointers that you give like a traveler to watch out or say, hey, make sure you do this?
One thing to watch out for is I went there this past summer, and then like my buddy was talking to like some people who were they look like tourists, and they invited us to like grab a drink, right? So we went to like this small bar, we grabbed the drink, like, oh hey, it's this person's birthday, let's order some wine, which wasn't on the menu, and then they tried to charge us like $500 for it.
What?
So yeah, it was like it's kind of like a
500
little scam.
Hong Kong dollars? Or
It
US
like came
dollars?
out to like $500.
Holy
For like 4
Whoa.
glasses of wine. So like I kind of knew what was going on, and like I told my buddy, hey, we gotta be careful. But yeah, you always gotta keep your guard up, and beware
Wow.
of stuff like that, because I think
This
it's
is in
very
Hong Kong.
common.
Where,
But
where was that?
that was in Beijing.
Beijing.
On
Yeah,
Beijing.
We were like near Tiananmen Square.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's because I guess I had gotten the impression from other folks I've talked to that in China, unlike say India, right, it's a place where people are generally not going to try to win one over on you. The price is the price. That's discouraging to me. Now I have a sad face to that I have to keep my guard up also.
Definitely.
I guess you always have to have your guard up though. Just be aware and watch yourself anywhere foreign that you don't know too well.
True.
Definitely. Now, on the same theme that Mike was asking before, so you went to South America, you went to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any other experiences that were questionable or where you felt uncomfortable, or for the most part, like the European countries and the South American countries, you felt pretty safe and you felt like they didn't discriminate?
So like the stuff like that thing I mentioned about the wine. I think similar stuff has happened to me, or like could have happened. Like I've seen it potentially happening in both Europe and South America. So, as Mike said, I think it's something that can happen no matter where you travel. So
Gotcha. Oh, gotcha. Very cool. Well, Mr. Mikey,
Yes.
do you have any other?
Nah, I think we've been rolling for a good episode here. We can ask you, Yoel, what is our sort of wrap up question that we get to our guests here is, what is something that you would like to do in your life, whether you want to do it next week or tomorrow or next year or when you're 80 before you die?
That's a good question. So
It can be anything.
I guess like hiking, like Mount Kilimanjaro. I mean, I think Mount Everest is a little aggressive for me, a little too dangerous. But like hiking up like a high mountain. I've never really done anything like that on any of my travels, so
Nice.
that's one thing on my bucket list.
That's very cool. That and going to Antarctica.
And Antarctica, yeah. And doing
Yeah.
a podcast in Antarctica.
Yeah.
we're as of today, officially, he wants to do a podcast specifically in Antarctica.
Yes, I'll be back for a second episode.
Reunion, yeah. Walking the Earth podcast reunion episode.
Very
Be on the
cool.
lookout for that. Sweet. Oh, I think that's good. Hiking up mountain and getting to Antarctica and doing a podcast.
Very cool.
Those are all good ones.
That's
Cool. Well, I guess I'll say to folks listening, the places you can find us, as always, are iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. We're on Facebook.com/Walking the Earth Podcast. We're on Twitter @WTE Podcast. And we will have our own website coming soon.
Yes.
So be on the lookout for that also.
Yes, very
And
exciting.
of course, vote for us, please, on podcastland.com. We're ranked in the top 5 currently. Help us stay there. Help us win our bet against peace
Yes.
propaganda. Help us maybe even win Podcast of the Month.
That would be amazing. Yes, the competition is very fierce. Peace Propaganda and Walking the Earth podcast have been sending fierce, violent messages back and forth. So please help us win this blood battle. Please.
Yeah. Feel free to jump in the Twitter conversation too.
Yes.
Search for #Podcast Wars or #VoteWTE.
Yeah. And
Or
if you have,
tweet about those too. Hey, if you tweet with #Podcast Wars or #VoteWTE this month, we'll mention you on an episode.
we will.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you have a good idea for should we win, if you have a good idea that we wind up using for the 3 minutes of taking over peace propaganda, I think, Michael, that maybe we should allow them an interview. Allow that person an interview on our podcast.
If they come up with
the winning solution.
the winning thing we should do with those 3 minutes. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. All right, you heard her here first. Yoeal, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Michael,
no
thank
problem.
you as always.
Yeah, thanks, man, for coming on.
Thanks for tuning into Walking the Earth podcast, a podcast about the backpacking experience. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.